Thanks very much, Adam. So again, my name is John Hudson. I'll be your moderator for the Collaboration Roadmap panel. My role in Shell is improving our subsurface staff capabilities in data and digital and focusing on the upstream development function. So let's start by doing an introduction for those that are going to be on the panel. And for each of you on the panel, I'd like you to just briefly introduce yourself and your role. And maybe you can help us to get to know you a little bit by telling us why this topic is of interest to you. So, Einar, can we start with you?
Yeah, okay, yes, Einar Landre. I work with Equinor in Norway. My main task now is to do with OSDU. It's a big collaborative, say, open source project in the industry, building a data platform. And of course, my interest in this talk, of course, relates to that background and experience, that it requires a collaboration across companies and time zones. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
Great, Einar. Thank you. Otavio, can we go to you next, please?
Yeah, thank you. Good morning or good evening, everyone. I'm Otavio. I'm founder and CEO of Vidya. I have a mechanical engineer background. Vidya is working with digital transformation in operation and maintenance phase of industrial plants, such as oil and gas plants and other economic sector as well. We have been working with digital twin, our own digital twin framework for asset integrity management, maintenance, operations, and we are stressing our solution and our products mainly here in Brazil. Now we are expanding our products globally. So mainly that's it. It's a pleasure to get this opportunity to share some insights here. Thank you, John.
Great. Steve, over to you.
Morning, everyone. Pleasure to join the panel. Steve Johnson. I'm Vice President Digital within Petrofac's Engineering and Production Solutions business. My role really is to look across our business and the services we provide and understand how we can leverage technology to provide better outcomes from our clients. And inherently within that, collaboration is absolutely key. We can't do it on our own. We need to collaborate with technology providers and crucially collaborate with our clients to be able to deliver the value that we see as possible.
Great. Thanks very much, Steve. And Ben?
Yeah, thanks, John. This is Sokolowski. I'm from Wintershall, working there as a transformation specialist / product manager, working in the field of digital twin. And they're focusing on mobile solutions. By background, I have a long history in maintenance management. Yeah, thanks.
Great, Ben. Thank you. Raphael.
Yes, good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. So my experience for me is 20 years with Schlumberger. I have a background in reservoir engineering and joined the company in reservoir engineering, applying early on in my days a number of digital technologies, in fact, to accompany reservoir studies that we carried out. I'm currently the marketing and strategy director for a basin we call Offshore Atlantic. Effectively, I look after the vast majority of the offshore business of Schlumberger when it comes to strategy from a strategy perspective. So in this job, really, it's all about bringing capital efficient and low carbon energy solutions to the offshore ecosystem. I do have a fair bit of experience in digitalization from the VP of Digital Technology and Solutions job that I held a few years back. And in this current job in the offshore environment, I guess we see digital to be everywhere here. It's a very remote environment, environmentally very sensitive, safety issues, very little room for error, and de-risking systematically, effectively. So I still have a lot of touch points with this digital space.
Okay, thanks to the whole panel for those sections. So let's dive right into it. So we've been talking about digital for 20 years or more, and we've seen great progress actually in many of the areas in where we're working. But in terms of collaboration across process, across disciplines, and between companies, we still have a lot of opportunity to go there. So let me ask you, how is that changing, and in particular within the topic that we're interested in today, the collaboration? How do you see that going forward from here? So Einar, maybe we can start with you.
Okay, yeah, thank you. My perspective, of course, is that I'm a born digital a software guy by training, and of course I was part of, as you said, going 20 years back. You had the .com. We started with the commerce on the internet. We got this consumer to the business to consumer stuff, and of course, but I think now when we come to industry, of course, industry has been lagging when it comes to say adopting the digital to become true digital. At the same time, I think that with initiatives like the OSDU, we see that there is an understanding in the industry that we need more collaboration and that we need to take advantage of, say if you look into the digital industry, open source software as a fundamental principle of how we develop new capabilities. So I think it's moving in the right direction, but of course it's also a slow-moving train as it's a slow-moving industry.
Yeah, so great. Thanks for that. Let's probe that a little bit deeper, Einar. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about the OpenSDU and how will it help collaboration? What practical changes might we see there?
I think that and I want to go back to the founding meeting of that, because there was 8 oil companies in the same room in Houston in, I think it was September 2018. And of course, the idea of working together to create a standardized data platform was surfaced, and Shell basically invited a couple of other companies, or not say there was 8 of us, and I think that one of the things that impressed me most was when the representative of ExxonMobil said, "None of us can build this alone. We need to do it as a collaborative effort, and we need to mobilize, say, also the cloud service providers who are now part of it. Both, you find both the IBM, the Googles, the Amazon, and the Microsofts are heavily involved in making this come through." And I think it's the understanding of that, yes, to become digital, it's not possible there is not space, or none is big enough to basically, and is not even allowed to basically dominate and control the world. I think that's also part of it. So we need to collaborate, and we need to forge alliances and bring things out in the open. And the last point I want to mention is this, that of course there is no company who have access to the best talent in the world. So it's also a way of basically making sure that you reach out and get the best brains ever, wherever they are located, part of your endeavor. That's also an element in that, at least in the OSDU story.
Great. Yeah, thanks for those additional details. So, Otavio, let me bring you into this. I know that you have a slightly different focus, with your company, with your role. What's your perspective on this?
Yeah, mainly working together and collaboration is part of our life. Vidya is a startup. We still have a startup profile. We started our relationship with major company basically by collaboration in proof of concept projects, pilot projects, or even participating in innovation programs. So every kind of project like that is looking to solve some client challenge that, and this client or a big company, for example, they have realized that they cannot solve this problem alone. It's not possible to develop alone a solution, nor to find something ready in the market. You must find people or companies or small companies that can help them to find the best solution possible. And technology also evolves pretty fast, and this is what makes collaboration with startups maybe valuable or less expensive or faster to deliver this kind of solution. So this is the importance of collaboration and work together for me. So precisely define the problem with other companies, share the risks, measure success of each project, and so on. So this, I believe, creates more value.
Yeah, let's also probe that a little bit. I mean, I think being a startup, you also have an idea about where the friction points are, what the difficulties are. Where should we be improving in terms of if we're going to be really working together across companies and letting each company really play its intended role. What should we be doing better?
I believe, I don't know, for me, the most friction we find is the relationship between big companies and small companies. We are a small company, so we are pretty fast. Our profile, professional profile is mostly younger people, so we with not too much patience. So and dealing with big companies that have a lot of processes and procedures and locks in relationship with several departments and so on. So this is the main challenge for us. But I believe this is changing. I believe this is changing. Yeah, because big companies are more open to share some data, some knowledge in this kind of innovation programs, or creating more innovative ways to hire technology, changing from, for example, bidding some kind of technology they want to bidding some kind of problems they have and looking for several companies to solve this problem. And even here in Brazil, they are creating a startup law, a new law that allows public companies to hire technology this way. So this is our point in this relationship along between my startups, my small companies, and big companies like major oil and gas companies, for example.
Thanks, Otavio. Okay, let's turn a little bit of a corner. One of the areas where we're going to need more collaboration is in the energy transition. And it's been great to see over the past couple of years the ambitions that various companies have announced against the climate imperative, and it's certainly opening up new opportunities and new business models. So how can that drive the need for greater collaboration, and what changes are taking place there? Maybe Raphael, maybe we could start with you on this one.
Yeah, no, very much so. And I just wanted to quickly and transition into this question and rebound back to the previous one. I think the emergence
Right.
of these digital technologies, the emergence of digital tech, really, I think, for the overall ecosystem, if you will, presented a big opportunity for a big reset in technology leadership and value differentiation. I think that reset tends to, at times, bring inward focus. How do we retain that technology leadership, that IP safety, if you will, right? And that sometimes may not be necessarily conducive to collaboration because it's all about streamlining the processes, opening things up, redefining commercial models, business models. I think openness and collaboration is really ultimately unavoidable. So onto the energy transition, and speaking about value differentiation, value differentiators, the interesting aspect, especially in the post-COVID world, yes, we're still dealing with probably even more so today, with the key drivers around capital discipline, return on investment, return on assets, but clearly something has changed. And when you look at carbon intensity, footprint emissions, emission stewardship has become probably the latest and most important performance driver that everybody will need to sort of demonstrate, right? And so I think that really becomes the game changer, as I think it's going to reshape the landscape, the value differentiation, and the nature of collaboration that's going to be required. If you think of the supply chain, and especially considering that the bulk of the emissions are very much, you could say, principally scope 3, you have to connect the entire supply chain. The origin of your goods, where these goods are going, there is no way around connecting this entire system, understanding the carbon lineage, if you will, the footprint lineage. And that collaboration is going to have to happen naturally for people to demonstrate their greener credentials or decarbonized credentials. And even more so today, independent of smaller companies will have to compete for the funds that become increasingly difficult to secure. So it's really all about emission stewardship, I would say, and the need to demonstrate the entire ecosystem, how you bring a solution to the market is indeed fully decarbonized, right? So I think this is how I see energy transition, in fact, as a huge benefit in a way when it comes to accelerating the pace of digitalization. And surely digital will be a huge enabler and a key vector of change in that sense.
Yeah, I like a lot of the points you raised there. I mean, I think that a key word there is acceleration. So some of these changes we were already seeing before the pandemic, right? Before a lot of the announcements, before maybe the realization of the urgency around the energy transition, but all of that's really coming together very quickly now. Ben, let me pull you into this as well. What's your perspective on the changing opportunities here with the energy transition and particularly with collaboration, which is the topic for this panel?
Yeah, from my perspective, every E&P company is moving towards it, right? So everyone is setting the scene for it, having sustainability targets, also pointing out towards hydrogen projects and all other fields of opportunity, maybe also going into this recycling topic. And there, basically, you need partners. You need to collaborate because you don't have a knowledge in-house for these specific topics. You know your reservoirs, your production sites, and all this stuff, but you don't know how to refract hydrocarbons that are plastics right now. So, and there you need to collaborate with engineering companies. You probably also need to collaborate with universities because you have definitely to do R&D on that one because it's also a new field, right? And I remember last year we talked about when will we as industry be ready to move on, and I think the time is already there that we can prove, okay, we are not just doing hydrocarbons, we are on our way to really produce greener energy in form of hydrocarbon, in form of hydrogen. We are going into the value chain, so not bringing our product to the market, we're also getting something from the market back and try to make it more usable for everyone.
Okay, great, thanks, Ben. Yeah, so maybe we'll pick up on a point that Raphael raised around supply chains, and certainly that's an important area where there's still a lot of cost efficiency to be gained, and also where collaboration across the supply chain is an important part of rapid solution development. So it'd be great if we had some practical examples of how that's changing. And maybe, Steve, I'll bring you in. I know that you're both working internally, at Petrofac, and also with your background, you have a lot of experience, with supply chains. How do you see that changing now?
So I think, from my perspective, there's a lot that's been said already that resonates from the point of view that to actually deliver value, we need to actually look at it from a systems type approach. There tends to be a lot of focus on the data, focus on the technology, but actually taking a step back and understanding the end-to-end process that's actually going to unlock value is really important, because it's often not the data or the technology. They're actually the barriers. I think it was mentioned before by one of the fellow panelists around the commercial aspect. Certainly one of the things we found that you need to look at is what are the impediments for that free flow of the end-to-end process that can be enabled by digital solutions and the exchange of data and collaboration. What are the inertia points within that process? Sometimes that can be a simple contractual model that is in place between the supply chain. The way you're rewarding different members within that construct can actually be an impediment to actually the collaboration you're trying to achieve. So it's really taking a more holistic view, looking at the end-to-end process, the system, focusing on the value, understanding where the technology has a part to play, but also look at the other aspects around that, which have nothing to do with the technology, but can actually be, pretty strong inertia point. And where we've seen that, where you get the right collaboration across the functions, the engineering teams, the right, technology partners, we've seen in our own experience, you can actually get incredible step change in value when you get that right. But the successes really come from taking a more holistic view, a systems level view, and addressing all the points that actually need to come together to deliver that value.
Yeah, and great, Steve. And are there particular kind of concrete examples that, in your experience, stick out as being insightful?
So, I mean, we've got an example where we've, converted the way we execute our ops and services for a number of operators within the North Sea sector. I see that as a model we want to take globally. And what's been key to that, as I say, is right at the forefront. We brought together the various different participants. We understood that end-to-end process. We, as I think was mentioned earlier, and we did an initial trial, showed the value that could be achieved. That was not just using our own systems; it was actually linking into clients' systems and exchange of data, across the boundaries of the different companies. And ultimately, we also identified very early on that there needs to be a mutual benefit and a level of incentivization for all involved within the contractual model. So we actually jointly changed that contractual construct to reward the productivity gains that we were actually looking to achieve. And we're achieving upwards of 200% productivity gains for a number of the activities being carried out. And as a result of that, that's a model that we see we want to take forward as a core to our business going forward globally in the future.
Okay, great examples there, Steve. Otavio, let me bring you into this as well, and maybe we could hit on what you commented on earlier around the challenges of startups and dealing with companies of various sizes. So if we look at that from a supply chain perspective, how could we make that supply chain more efficient?
Yeah, I totally agree with Steve here. New ways of hire companies, and even more than one company for one specific problems it can be a solution. We deal a lot with some innovation programs here in Brazil that have great results. In fact, starting with pilot projects, but with several companies. I wouldn't say disputing, but I don't know, trying to find the best solution with pretty well measurable objectives in these innovation programs, in each challenge, and new kinds of contracts as well. So with smaller terms and pretty objective first deliverable, so we can prove that our technology or anyone else technology is good, generate results, and we can go forward with a pretty specific roadmap for roll out the technology. And I believe this is our expertise here, and that works well. It's working well right now.
Okay, great. Yeah, Raphael, maybe I could bring you in on this one as well. Of course, Schlumberger is active across a really wide space of the supply chain, and maybe you want to talk specifically from. I know that your work in what you guys are doing with Delphi and how that's a little bit of how that's going to promote collaboration. But I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the supply chain there as well. And of course, the traditional supply chain has been that you've been a provider of software and services in this area, but it seems like the model is changing significantly in the way Schlumberger is approaching that.
Yeah, absolutely, John. So maybe I'll take a step back, and when I look at, if I reflect on the landscape of activity today in this offshore environment, for example, so you're dealing with typically the large capital projects, capital intensive, long cycle, and increasingly a lot more intensity around. the shorter cycle aspects. When we look at the large, prolific asset development, for example, Brazil, Guyana, some of these places, Suriname, these are very long lead times, high risk, high capital intensive projects. And it's very much what EPC companies would do. Delivering on these projects requires a different level of collaboration between the different parties. But so what we've been doing, tapping into obviously our capability on the hardware, on the equipment front, our ability to deliver turnkey solutions on the subsea front midstream, but also digitally amplify from the very early planning stages with our customers and with the other suppliers to make sure we come up with the optimal design under constraints, come up with the right trade-off impact, and increasingly not constrained by the carbon impact. But so that digital amplification of our involvement, if you will, is everywhere. So that's an example on the large capital projects, on the long cycle. And I think even more importantly, so if you look at the intervention space, today, about extending the life of or exploiting existing infrastructure, typically North Sea, Gulf of Mexico, maybe West Africa a little bit. This is about extending the life of these assets, tying marginal resources into existing infrastructure. And that also requires lowering the overall cost of these intervention programs, of these life extension programs. And the only way to really achieve that is to identify the opportunities, not just for one operator, because it is an increasingly connected ecosystem of a company tying into a third-party infrastructure is actually connecting these opportunities and screening through the opportunities and connecting them all in order to lower the cost for all these operators. So there's no other way but to in fact collaborate for the benefit of everybody here, right? And there again, we rely upon some of the open digital solutions to effectively ingest, contextualize data, capture the various objectives and different constraints. And we very much, go back to your question, John, go back to the commitment to openness that we've done a long time ago, in fact, even before Delphi. If you think of, Shell, you would know a company, a successful software called Petrel for subsurface characterization, subsurface modeling. The real inflection point in the commercial success of Petrel was, in fact, when we turned this into an open environment where companies can in fact plug in their own IP, their own specific IP, and still benefit from a platform, all the while differentiating and connecting themselves. Right. So we've done the same thing with Delphi, except that it's going to new levels, if you will, of interoperable services in this digital world.
Yeah, that is a great feature of Petrel and your products is that they are so open and extensible. I agree. Yeah, so just a reminder to the participants, we will be taking your questions, and there will be time for that a little bit later. So do put your questions in. We'll be watching those as well. So let's talk a little bit about staff development. And, of course, whether you're in an operating company, a service company, a university, or a startup, we're facing challenges to keep skills and capabilities current, right? Things are changing so rapidly. The work of 2 or 3 years from now is going to be very different than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So in some sense, the pandemic accelerated some of that challenge that was already there, because we moved to remote working and saw some changes in the way that we're collaborating. How can we do better at keeping people's skills current, particularly in light of what are likely going to be skill shortages in the energy industry in the coming years? So Steve, maybe we'll come back to you and let you have a first crack on this one.
Well, I'm going to disappoint one. I don't have a magic wand to solve that particular challenging question, but I think clearly, the challenge is there. There's could probably have a whole panel session on this particular topic, but there's a whole dynamic there in terms of how people see the industry as well, particularly the oil and gas sector. Many companies, as you mentioned, are moving towards the opportunities in the energy transition. And certainly from our perspective, my perspective, I see that as potentially an opportunity, not just in terms of the business opportunities there, but to attract new talent into the industry and give other opportunities for existing personnel, where those skills are transferable. So we are looking very, very seriously at how we transform the business and transition individuals and give them the skills, not just from a digital perspective, but also in terms of positioning them to opportunities that will be coming with that changing landscape of projects and opportunities as the energy transition progresses, and building up relationships with academia, institutions, collaborative bodies like Net Zero Technology Centre that provide opportunities that may be different from the traditional routes that people have been exposed to, so that they can gain knowledge, not necessarily purely from a traditional training standpoint, but by being exposed to those different experiences and working and collaborating. As I say, I don't think there's any magic wand to this. I think it's really about providing exciting opportunities for individuals, both existing personnel, and also in terms of doing that, attracting new talent into the sector, but also reckoning that we've got a challenge there that we need to overcome in respect to certain people's view of the image of the industry. I think we can change that, but we've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, great. So Shane from Kongsberg introduced the concept of bronze bullets instead of silver bullets, and maybe we just need more of them. So Ben, I wonder if you have thoughts around this topic as well. I mean, what are you finding at Wintershall, and what are your ambitions in terms of helping people to migrate through the skill changes that we're seeing?
So from our perspective, it's not just giving people skills, it's also giving them the purpose, and then having the commitment from the management that they have time for it. Because when I'm looking back 20 years ago, when I was on a training and coming back from this training and haven't been able to work on that specific topic, then it was gone after a month. So you have to attract people on a specific topic, for example, data science, wrapping a program around and also showing them, okay, this would be then the way you work in the future. Not just, okay, here you can learn some Python stuff and then you can think about what you can do afterwards. Really showing, okay, here, this is your toolbox for that. Here you can learn it, and then you can tackle these problems that way. And we're also doing this on our self-service toolbox, actually. So not just kicking in, saying, okay, we have a new tool, here you can learn it, and then go ahead. We really take a journey with them. So really having introductory sessions, then having one-on-one sessions, doing workshops with them, and also try to build, and that's also very important, a community around that. Because then people can help each other, not always reaching out to the one people that maybe have no clue from the business itself. They can instead reach out to people that know exactly what they are doing in the business. That's something we experienced and also was well received by our participants in the program.
Yeah, those points really resonate with me, Ben. I think we could just take a slide turn on that and say what is the role of the leader in all of this? We talk a lot. You mentioned Python and kind of digital skills that we think of as maybe individual contributors, but leaders are going to have an important role to play as well. So, how do the expectations on leaders and how do the skills of leaders change as we go forward? Einar, maybe do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that, because as I was listening to this, and one of the thoughts I have to introduce it is also think about myself. I call it a digital by education. I spent 40, so basically it's 40 years ago since I left university with a degree in computer science and computer. So if you think about the digital industry, it is a very dynamic, changing industry. So basically, of course, the core principles, there is none of the technology that was modern the day I was in university that's still there. It's gone. If you look into the geoscience world, of course, Moderator hasn't changed as much in 40 years. And I think that there is something of this sort of pace or difference in pace between industries. And of course, when you then try to onboard people who basically come from, I call it slow moving, but of course, given that, say, it's an element of more stability in the oil industry than in the digital industry. And of course, that is an enormous challenge for leadership, because you need to basically bring on board and advocating some of the digital stuff. And if you are not that native in that area, of course, you struggle because it's alien to you. And I think that that's one of the things that I've seen a lot of in our company, of course, is that, yes, some leaders struggle because the skills they have themselves is not basically, they are not raised in the digital world. And that, of course, might for some be challenging. So that's at least one perspective to it.
Yeah, so I guess what you're saying there is that maybe they don't know exactly how these new approaches will apply, and so it's hard to know what the demand is going to be over the coming years. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's, you don't know what the demand is, and you need to basically, and you need to have this sort of, I think if you look into, I look into people who are really sustained in the digital world, of course, over time, they have always had this sort of inner drive to keep themselves up to speed, whatever, say, digging into new stuff, adopting new things, a new phone, so it's a lot of that kind of adaptation of say, gadgets, some of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of them play games. It's, I say, there is some sort of there is difference in how people have basically the nature of people, and I think that's also, that comes in play at scale when you look at industries.
Yeah.
I
So
think
you know, a general manager is probably not going to get much use out of a Python course, right? And probably that's not the right topic. But we all see what's happening on our phones, right?
Yeah.
And so the question is, you know, how do we take the businesses that we've had and realize the challenges before us. We've talked about the energy transition and about how the need for better integration, and also that the problems are going into new frontier areas. You know, for example, we don't really know today what a hydrogen trap looks like, you know, and we don't know how much contamination there's going to be because the rock fluids for hydrogen haven't been as well studied. So there's going to be a lot of new areas that we're going into. So how do leaders get their heads around that and really drive the changes that are needed for the workforce? You know, Raphael, do you have thoughts about that?
Yes, and I apologize, John, if I was stray a bit, but I thought there were some very good points made previously. And indeed, there's a clear need for leadership and demonstrating the modeling effectively the behavior, the ambition. But I think the one point that I think everybody touched on, but that really needs to be called as such, is the need for our industry to offer a new employee value proposition. It really is what it is at the end of the day, right? If you go back 5-10 years back, you could say, I agree with Einar that digital has been to some extent around for quite a while, but the real digital acceleration, or you could say the many bubbles and the proliferation of initiatives a few years back, you know, our issue was about attracting digital savvy talent because we had to compete with the tech world, you know, which offers a different experience for these potential recruits. Obviously, now we face the additional challenge of not being perceived as a very attractive industry. So I think there's from a leadership standpoint, a need to redefine a very clear value proposition for the employees. And so if I reflect back now on what we do as Schlumberger, and we've been sort of bathing in this digital world for quite some time, really it underpins, it's part of our DNA. But we've gone back a few years back to really redefining our vision, you know, and we talked about purpose previously. For us, it's about defining and driving high performance sustainable. So it is in our vision statement. Digital underpins that strategy. Digital underpins the training and development of all these employees. What we quickly realize is also that purpose element that we have to frame. So a net zero ambition and driving these initiatives is an important aspect. And in many ways, that push for decarbonization for a cleaner world is a huge opportunity for us to, in fact, attract this talent that cares about this very deeply, and that brings along their digital capabilities, and to retain them, right? So I think I'm quite optimistic for me, in fact, that we've got a very good future, that we've got actually a very good opportunity to bring these digital savvy talents. We embrace digital, we provide flexible working models, if you will, our commitment to net zero, and a comprehensive ESG strategy. Looking at social environmental impact wherever we actually work, focusing on decarbonization of our own footprint, of our customers' footprint, and in fact, in our case, you were talking about hydrogen. We've also taken steps in establishing new ventures in these new forms of energies. Right? So I think that long intervention. I apologize, John, but to restate, I think the importance of this employee value proposition that is indeed underpinned by digital. I think that's become de facto in many ways.
And no need to apologize. I really appreciate you adding that in. I think you're spot on. I think that if we're honest, over the last few years, we've been sending kind of the exact wrong messages. Saying to employees in companies, we're not sure we have a job for you. And we don't know where you should be going, and maybe to the academic environment, we don't know if there's going to be a market for these types of degrees anymore, right? So I think that all the more we have to do what you just said, Raphael. We have to go back and we have to really know the story ourselves. We have to understand where is it that we're going, where are the opportunities, why is it that our companies and our industry are playing such an essential role to getting us to where we need to be in the world. What is that role? And how do degrees in geosciences and petroleum engineering and other technical fields, why are they essential in the world right now? So I think you're exactly spot on there. Anybody else want to get in on this particular aspect?
If I may, John, I believe to complement, I'm totally agree with you and what Raphael has said, but I believe that something that complements is that the employees or the guys who we are working with must also not only have a purpose, but also feels that what they are doing is generating some results. They feel the results of their working daily, in a daily basis. So this is easier for a smaller company, I believe, than in the big company. But this is necessary. People don't stay if they don't see that if they making a difference in a daily basis. They don't see the result of their own job. It's only if their job or their work is only a piece. They cannot see how it's changing the product, the services, the purpose, and so on. So this is my point of view.
I would also like to add one thing to this, because maybe there is also should be change to the education. I know that, for example, if you look into petroleum tech, say into the G&G studies, I think my impression is, at least, is that they learn to use tools, digital tools, to do interpretations, but they are not part of developing those tools. They are not part of how to implement this algorithm, this wavelet algorithm for seismic interpretation. That's not part. They are users of those algorithms, but they are not part of being trained in to do that low-level interpretation. You need also to have an understanding of the implementation, and that would have helped a lot of bridging the gap between, or not only being thought of as digital users, but also as producers of digital tools fit for my task.
Yeah, great
Just
point.
thought.
Yeah, I think Einar, you also point to we need to rethink the way we're doing training overall. I think the traditional approach where you learn the background of some skill and then you have a particular path along a 5 to 8 year initial career, and then you do a variation on that thing that's completely broken now. So do we need to rethink the way we're doing the university experience even, or to be much more work-like, so that people have the expectation of working and learning their whole careers. I think that's a rich discussion point.
It is.
Yeah.
And I also have one question for Raphael. If you think of, say, Schlumberger, do you think of yourself as a oil industry company or as a software company that also does oil? Put it that way.
That's a very interesting question. And the answer is, in fact, is when we look at our values, the very first one is people. So really everything we do is centered around people. And then the way we define ourselves is a technology company, and as an energy technology company, of which indeed what digital is a substantial component. Now, what we do think we do relatively well with is looking at industrializing the delivery of technology solutions, of being at the forefront of some of the more challenging environments, but of all kinds. So we have the ability to industrialize, the way in which we deliver technology solutions to the world. And so for that reason, we've also in the past few years been evolving gradually, and also looking at quite a few ventures, but in the new energy space. So even though indeed what our core today is very much around oil and gas, but in many ways really trying to bring affordable energy to the world to help our customers do so in many ways, participate in our own way in the just transition, but at the same time, repurposing some of the skills we have and some of the advantages we have that we've demonstrated in oil and gas to new forms of energy, be it around geothermal, be it around lithium, around hydrogen, but always with the perspective around technology. How do we bring differentiation and benefit through technology?
Yeah, great perspective there. Thanks for asking that question, Einar. That was good. Maybe I could answer that for Shell too, because I think Shell's an interesting case example as well, and probably indicative of a lot of the changes going on. So of course, we're an integrated oil company by history, right? And if you look at our business, oil is still important, but much less so than it was 10 years ago. So gas is a much more important part of our overall mix, and actually electricity is starting to be a much bigger part of our mix. So we're really moving to an integrated energy company with a focus on transitioning major industrial partners. So for example, several years ago, even just 5 years ago, I couldn't have imagined that we'd be working with major steel manufacturers partnering around getting to net zero. That's kind of a new business for us. So I think that's an example of how a huge company is changing very rapidly right now, and of course I think we're all seeing that, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we can turn the corner a little bit, in the last part of this section to talk about strategy and how we'll practically see changes moving forward. Of course, we're always updating our digital strategies, and over the last couple of years, really since the pandemic, that's dramatically accelerated now. Where it's not only offshore operations we're trying to virtualize; it's basically everything we're trying to virtualize, and of course we're all working very frequently across company lines and across many nations and continents. How are our digital strategies going to change in the next several years? So Ben, maybe I'll start with you.
So basically, our strategy is changing all the time. So moving from a more scope-orientated approach towards a product-based approach, now moving over to a service-based approach. I think we will end up in some years in a mixed approach, basically, because you cannot focus on one thing. Plus, you will always have many side effects. Is it the company strategy that changes? So as it did 1 month ago or something, and then you have to adapt because you want to be flexible. You still want to accelerate, even if we had already accelerated our ambitious goals. And this will, for us, be the future. So having a mix of the approach, deploying quickly solutions, but also having a focus on customer care and of course also delivering on the stakeholder end, right? So proving our value, proving our reaching our targets, especially on the sustainability end. So I think this will our future be mixing up, not
Great.
having one straightforward, having our ears on every end.
Yeah, Steve, I know you mentioned that internally within Petrofac, you're involved in kind of a digital transformation, and what does that look like on your side?
So I think, I mean, for me, the word strategy gets banded around. It depends on essentially, are you truly talking about strategy, or talking about the actual way you're going to deliver that strategy, which is more the tactics. For us, we as a service company, as I mentioned before, we're using technology as an enabler. So we have done some development of our own technologies, but we're leveraging the supply chain as well. And the strategy that we've put in place there is very much centered around the strategy for the whole company. Where we're going, where we see the opportunities. That's obviously influenced by the market. We spent some time there talking about the energy transition and the opportunities we see there, and essentially lining up the digital element of that with the overall strategy is an important factor, and that tends to change more driven by where we see the company going, the opportunities we see that we want to enable. There's more fluidity, I would say, around the tactics, in terms of delivering those objectives. So technology changes. How do we actually incorporate the latest technology into the plan to leverage and better delivery? And also, I think we go through as I see it, a sort of 3-phase journey in terms of broad buckets of maturity. So when we started this process, it was very much in the sort of experimentation, development stage, doing the POCs, understanding where we could leverage technology, how that fits with the way we deliver our business, how that can deliver for our clients, what it's looking for, where are the opportunities. Then the piece around, I guess you would use industrialization, adopting at scale, deployment, and what we're moving into now, through the journey we've been on, is things don't stand still. So there's then what I would call the sort of evolving of the solution. So as you actually adopt at scale, you're getting continuous feedback. Not only does technology change, but you learn more about actually going to drive even more efficiency or more benefit. You get that user feedback, client feedback that allows you then to continuously improve and add more in terms of the solutions you're providing. So it's more at I would say at the tactics level, where there's greater fluidity and a constant recycling and thinking about how we get the best out of the solutions we're taking forward, and how we need to move flexibly and dynamically to get those opportunities.
Great, Steve. Anybody else want to jump in there?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go on, Raphael.
No, look, what I was going to say is, when it comes to those two aspects in terms of strategy, I mean, for us, we're really building upon our historical leadership, I would say, around first principles. So that's the one thing, and then we amplify that with digital. But so we've been carrying out our transition to more of a cloud environment that's AI, ML rich, to amplify what we've been traditionally doing with the first principle, with technologies to focus on first principles. And then digitalizing hardware. Obviously, we deploy a lot of hardware around subsea, logging, stream logging tools of all kinds. Right? So digitalizing that, sensor technology, fiber optic, all this is quite crucial. One of the critical, in fact, elements that go back to your question, that we foresee as a catalyst for even more acceleration, I would say, around digital, is a topic that I'm sure Einar is familiar with, around electrification. And so system electrification of very intelligent digital solutions to leverage that. Right? And so So really, in terms of that's the general investment or focus that we've got. Of course, we have to embrace new forms of engineering, sustaining deployment, commercial models, etc. And the rest, I think the key is focus on the outcomes we're seeking to get. There's a few of them. How to reach as fast as possible zero POV. Zero POV offshore, complete autonomous well construction, autonomous systems, self-declaring device, self-communicating devices. Evergreen portfolio, evergreen trade-off analysis. I think that's kind of the end goal we're going forward, and we see some very positive steps in that direction, certainly in acceleration.
Yeah, lots of things we could chase there, but I think you've enumerated quite a few of the places where we're seeing dramatic changes taking place. Thanks for that. Okay, the last topic Einar, did you want to jump in there?
I just wanted to say that from Equinor's side, we when we carved out the digital strategy in 2017-ish, the key thing for us was to say that we put data into the center. And the ability to standardize and to get data standardized and formalized. Say a Word document is not a digital data product. So it's about, and do that journey and to build up so you can, create digital data representations and have them standardized. So to me, that means that they can be exchanged. So in that way, you create digital interfaces. Some call it APIs. That's another way, but it's on the same storyline. To do that as part of, as you say, both as when you digitalize the hardware, you need APIs and the data protocols that comes out that goes in and out. And that is a journey that we are of course are driving for. And of course, as with Steve, the tactics changes, but I think the strategy on data first stays firm.
And if I may, Einar, sorry, John. But just to complement, if I may, I understand that data will be centric for this the digital strategies. But as I understand, the traditional companies will have to deal on how this data or these technologies or systems or I don't know any kind of technology that will use this data will cross the boundaries of their IT environments. Will use outside systems, outside clouds, or outside environments, and more integration that cross this border. And in the other hand, we will need to deal with cybersecurity concerns, with data property integrity, system integrity demands, and I really would like to know the Einar's view on that issue in terms of delivering data and cybersecurity. On the other hand, if you may, John.
Yeah, so we've just got a couple minutes left. So Einar, do you want to quickly hit on that one?
I can. As I say, it's a major undertaking. I think I'll leave it there. It's it takes an hour.
Yeah,
it's a major undertaking, and it's there is no quick fix to it. I think that's
Great. Okay, so just as we close this out, we've talked about a number of topics here. Thanks so much to the panel for contributing to a very interesting discussion over the last hour. I'll leave it there. There's a question that came in on which technology will make the biggest impact to the energy transition in the short term. Wow, it's hard to pick out just one, but certainly I would say that one of the major transitions that's coming is in electricity demand, and how do we provide at an affordable cost globally the kind of electrical demand that's coming. So I don't know if anyone has additional thoughts around what else might be important. It's hard to pick out just one topic. Yeah,
that stands.
Okay, let's leave it there then. Again, Einar, Otavio, Steve, Ben, Raphael, thanks so much for participating. I really got a lot of very useful insights, and I know the participants did as well. So thanks, and Adam, back over to you.